conflicts, I thought?
Yes, travel.
Where'd you get those that I gave to you?
I gotta buy them. They didn't give them to me.
You didn't buy them?
I know, it's just criminal, isn't it?
From him or from Michael Latano?
Michael.
Okay, that's better. I feel better about that.
It's all going for good.
How old are you? Oh, you have the blonde.
One people in a crowd.
It's today.
Or nutrition. Right, it's not.
Oh, January, right?
Okay,
Oh, yeah?
good to
That's
go.
nice.
Good evening. We'd like to resume our meeting. We had an executive. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay, we'd like to resume our meeting. We had an executive session at 6:30, and let's start off with a pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
One quick announcement, Mr. Gilbert had a work commitment, so can I have a motion to adopt the agenda? Mr. Rajat, second. Mrs. Miller, all in favor? Okay. So study session is designed for the purpose of administrative updates to the board. There are no public comments at these meetings. Residents may attend the next business meeting on February 11th and or contact the board by email at bo@gnet.org with any comments or questions. These come into the Office of Public Information and are shared with the board and our superintendent as appropriate. Policy questions typically addressed by the board. Operational questions typically addressed by the superintendent and or designee. So let's start with Dr. Robinson's comments.
Sure, just a couple of updates to the board. Just want to share some draft. We're in the process of planning what we call a parent safety forum on March 25th. And this is just a draft of the agenda. I've shared it with Mr. Preston and Mrs. Stevenson. They gave some feedback on the agenda. So I just wanted to give to the board just this draft agenda. I want to sort of walk through it, but just so you have it. Mrs. Carmen is spearheading this initiative with our liaisons from the Sheriff Department. And so hopefully we'll try to provide a pretty broad context of all the things that we're doing in safety, from training to transportation to some of the things we're doing with student engagement. So hopefully a pretty comprehensive piece, and also create an opportunity for from some Q&A from concerned parents about some of the things that we're doing. So again, this is just FYI, because this is in the planning phase, and we'll start to do some publicity as we move forward. And you see them on the backside of it. I have some notes, additional notes, some areas that we're going to make sure we focus on in some kind of a presentation format as well. Mm-hmm. So more to come on that, but just want to give you a heads up on that piece of it. The second piece is we did a quick little poll. The board wanted to do building tours. And so, typically in my role, I make all these executive decisions, but I would never, ever make an executive decision that's going to bind 4 members of the board to one thing and 3 members of the board to another thing. So, as you can see on this little quick poll, trying to do tours on either the 24th or 26th of February or the 18th and 23rd of March. We have all over the place in terms of who can make it when. So I'm going to ask the president to look at this, study it very carefully, and if he could give me some kind of resolution, and I'd be more than happy to share it out with the entire board in terms of who's won't be able to attend this. So I'm assuming the president, you're going to choose the 2 that you say okay with.
Probably. I'd still like to talk to the board, get the feedback. This is something we all wanted to do. In my case, I can probably provide 2 hours, and I'd like to do it on the second of the 2 hours.
Okay.
So there are some details that didn't come through here, but what I'd like to do is just send something back to the board with my comments, and maybe people could flesh them out, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
The intent behind here is that we often, when we have the beginning of the year, I think you really articulated as well in some of our conversations, is we do this beginning of the year, great time in that it's not as disruptive as during the school day, because everybody's kicking off their classes. But there's also time that we missed in the winter. There's times that we often don't see the classes actually running And I think everybody's taking that very seriously, and I'd like to make sure we flesh it out a little bit more. But thank you very much for doing this. It's very helpful.
Just a quick note, so you know, and the Wednesdays, I didn't put that I was available. I can do 7:30 to 9. I just have a 9:30 executive management meeting that I have to be at every Wednesday. So I can do part of it. I just didn't put yes because I couldn't do
Got
the
you
whole
both.
thing.
And, sorry, are you done?
Yes, I am. Thank
Sorry.
you.
I can do both days in March. I'm not sure why I didn't answer that, but, so March works. either
We're getting
day.
better.
Okay.
Beautiful thing.
All right, we will continue. Okay.
The other, just by way of quick announcements, Mr. DeLallo, I know has been, he sent me a couple of correspondence on this. The Board of Regents doing statewide discussions, forums around graduation requirements. And Dr. Wood and myself, and could be some other folks, are registered to attend one on Thursday in Saratoga, the BOCES in Saratoga. However, the Capital Region BOCES is also doing a similar one on March 18th as well. So if I thought I sent a link out, but if I didn't, I'll resend again because in case board members want to attend, going to the Capital Region BOCES one might be the one for you to attend to as well. So we'll send that link out again just in case people are able to attend the March 18th one. And just as a FYI, we issued our advocacy paper to our respective legislative leaders. And in fact, this Friday, the Capital Region BOCES is sponsoring a legislative breakfast, so we get a chance to talk to some of those from our Assembly and Senate folks on Friday as well. And we're trying to coordinate the visit to the Legislative Office Building for March 3rd, I think it's that Tuesday. And once we get confirmation for appointments, we'll send out times and try to figure out how we coordinate efforts to get to the Legislative Office Building on March 3rd, whatever that Tuesday is. I'm not pretty sure it's that Tuesday. So those are things I have by way of announcements. You want me to continue with the presentation? Sure. So tonight we have a special guest. We have a young lady who I haven't seen her presentation yet, but I've heard a lot about her presentation. Not putting pressure on her as she comes forward, but we heard that it was very, 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 very good. So we're expecting a spectacular presentation tonight. No pressure. So I'm going to have her, Katie Headwell, introduce our special student presenter tonight. Katie, somebody wants to do this?
Yeah. I'll leave this right here for you. Hi, good evening, everybody. I'm Katie Headwell. I'm the Director of Food Service here. And this is Lauren Spiegel. She's a senior here, interested in nutrition, and she'll give you a little bit of background of why she's doing this and what we've done. Lauren has graciously done the presentation for 8 or 9 sports teams already, PTA. We thought this was a good opportunity to introduce her to you guys so you guys could see what she's been working on. She's worked very hard on this, and the presentation is good. So I'll leave it to Lauren. Yeah, you can just click here.
First, I'd like to say thank you for inviting me tonight. My name, again, is Lauren. I am a senior at Shen. I play both field hockey and lacrosse on the varsity teams. And yes, I have done like 8 or 9 presentations, and I have another one lined up for the wrestling team in 2 weeks. So get ready for that. To begin, I got the idea for my presentation called Fueling Your Performances when I attended Information Day at Cornell. The College of Human Ecology has a nutritional sciences major that resonated with me as I sat in on that information session. So as I drove back home from that information session, I thought about some of other students that were in the session, and I was impressed with this one girl who said she had created a whole blog about nutrition and everything, and I was like, wow, that's great. And I wanted to do something myself to get interested in the major because that's what I wanted to go into in college and everything. Alongside Katie Headwell, I came up with the idea to connect my interest in nutritional sciences with my love of sports. I felt that I, along with other athletes at Shen, would benefit from understanding more about nutrition as it relates to their athletic performance and health. So let me show you a little bit of the presentation. So we start off with the slide known as Food as Fuel, where I would discuss some of the different scenarios and time and what the best type of food to eat given the amount of time and one has before workout, practice, or competition. So here I would talk about how it's best to get up as early as possible before you go to your activity. So over the summer, I would have 8 o'clock field hockey practices in the morning. So I typically wake up around 7 and I have a meal before 7:30 and then head down to the field and get ready. So then I had enough time for the food to digest and get into my system so I'd have enough energy for my practice. So I listed some great menu options here, like a protein smoothie, whole grain cereal with or without milk, and a cup of oatmeal topped with banana and sliced almonds. So when I was researching this topic, I was like, maybe I should make a snack while I presented them to all the sports teams. So I came up with this great snack note that I call the oatmeal cinnamon apple brown sugar bite. And my mom is going to be passing them out for you. I brought them.
They're so good.
Thank you, Gina.
So yes, this is my mother, Jean Spiegel. Her and my father, Bruce, came along with me today.
We can attest, they're very
Yes,
good.
and the recipe is also alongside the back of the presentation that Katie handed out. So they're very quick and easy to make, and they're a great thing to grab if you're running late to work or right before a workout. So we go to the next slide where we talk about the type of carb. So carbs are always a topic for athletes, and how I discuss the different types of carbs and how they are best used on the type of event. So like endurance or short of intense events, you need to have enough carbs to get you through that event. So you have to have a ton of energy. Pasta parties are big among sports teams, like field hockey and lacrosse. We all have a lot of pasta parties almost every week. They have their benefits, but they're not always used appropriately. So if we typically just have pasta, that's not going to benefit you the next day. So we always typically have a side salad with our pasta at most of our parties. Just in case you yourself don't want to fall prey to this mistake, I will refer you to the iconic Michael Scott. And I did show this to all the other sports teams. I had a link and everything.
Is there sound?
Yes, I think. Expedia. Okay. I'm a big fan of The Office, so I had to use this.
Oh, we watch it all the time.
So if any of you have watched The Office, this is the fun run against rabies awareness. So he's eating a whole thing of pasta Alfredo right before he runs.
It's okay, this sounds not.
Okay.
No, it's not important. And then he ignores water. Which is irrational. Because you should be hydrating while you're eating as well. I thought it was pretty funny. So my mom thought it was great. So then if we go to, is it this one? I'm not sure.
Thank you.
You gotta go back one. There we go. Okay. So cutting calories on purpose or by accident is common amongst most high school students and athletes. And I touch on this point when I give them their presentation. Vitamins, as well as the infamous energy bar, is a part of my presentation. And I tell these students that they should watch out for these energy bars that are high in sugar, because what you want to be looking for is protein bars that are full in carbs and protein, because that's what you mainly want, and that'll give you the most energy instead of just the sugar. And then I continued on that, where vitamins and minerals are not sources of energy, but they have important functions to the body. And then I continued with the energy bars fact as well. Here I listed 12 best nutrients and vitamins that you should look for and include in your meal plan. So building muscle and burning fat is what every athlete should be focused on if they want to be at their best while conditioning and be able to perform well. So this slide gives students the 12 best nutrients and vitamins and examples of how to get them. So typically I try to include all of these into my daily meal and diet. So typically for my today lunch I took, I had a cup of blueberries, I had a banana, and I had a turkey and pepperoni sandwich on 12-grain bread, which is really good. And then I typically, when we have a lot of peppers and cold raw green beans, which are really good to eat, and baby carrots and everything like that. And then we continue with that, like zinc, riboflavin, and copper. And I listed on each, next to each vitamin mineral, I listed 4 different types of foods of where they can find them and how they can include them in their meal plan. I like to talk about foods and how to avoid pregame because we all have fallen victim to grabbing like chips and candy and cookies because it's just like an easy thing to grab. And we are hurrying to get to practice or a game. Even things like dairy is not a good idea pregame because bloating isn't good for the player, and it's definitely not good for your teammates. So I've heard a lot of stories about that. Caffeine is a topic here as well, and I talk about that burst of energy that is more phantom than real. It's a drug that stimulates your central nervous system, but it's not fueling your muscles or building glycogen stores. It can also lead to dehydration, fatigue, and nausea. So save your lattes and iced coffees till after the workout. I remember I had one of my teammates, several of them show up with iced coffee, so
We don't know anything.
not necessarily Liv, but other people. But I yell at them before, and they're like, oh, no, it's fine, and then they don't perform well. I'm like, well, should have listened. Finally, I discuss hydration at the end of my presentation. It's not just during or after the workout or game. Teens should drink 2 to 2.5 cups of water at least 4 hours before physical activity, and at least 1 cup of water 15 minutes before the activity. Sports drinks have some value when replacing water, but they do contain carbs and electrolytes. If you have been doing a high-intensity workout, it's really great to drink them to replenish your fluids and everything, but you want to make sure that you're not drinking them all the time because you will, they do have carbs, so you'll have a chance of gaining weight from that. But in the end, water remains supreme. So there you have it. I do go into more depth about everything when I give this presentation to all of my sports teams. I just wanted to give you a good idea of what I have presented to over 200 students in this past fall.
Wow.
Any questions, comments?
Yes, do you have any questions?
I just want to say I really appreciate you doing this because we can all learn about eating better. But I also want to say that I think it's great that you're presenting to your fellow students because they don't want to hear from us.
Yeah.
Hearing from you is I think that it's heard better.
Yes.
So thank you for doing that, and I hope you reach all the teams.
Yes, I hope so too. I know I've been working on trying to get to the basketball. I have the wrestling coach said yes to it, and then definitely during the cross, I'll have girls and boys, baseball and softball. But next year, my goal is to hopefully extend on it in college because I plan on playing sports in college as well, so I would extend on that. And hopefully, I could leave this here with a Shen student, and they can carry it on next year as well.
Absolutely.
What will count for me is I went to the Carrigan Partnership team meeting, and one of the things they told me is a presentation we had earlier this year from Sarah Chiaffi on our English language learners has been circulated amongst the elementary students, elementary teachers. So please consider maybe taking this to middle school and elementary school. I think it makes a big difference when they see a grad, or someone who's going to graduate from your school. Present it.
Yes, I had presented to the modified cross-country team before, and they did take it away well with that from Mr. Silvignoli and his assistant that he works with as well.
And Lauren, just so you know too, because you know Nick.
Yes.
Well, so I sent him the recipe for this because he very much follows this and tries to get me on it, and I just say, write out everything for me because I won't follow it unless it's written per se. But I sent him the recipe, and he plays hockey in college, so he made it, and they eat that now. They make that all the time. Your snack.
Really?
They do. They like it. They thought it was great.
That's great.
Yeah, so I just thought I'd share that. So see, in college,
great.
you're already doing things for the college kids. But good luck in that field. I think it's a great field.
Thank
and
you.
have a lot. And also to say, Katie, as well, for being involved. I know you've been very involved working side by side with Lauren, and I'd like to see that, many of our staff being mentors to our students in addition to our teachers and our faculty is having also other staff. So it's just a delight to see that collaboration.
Yes.
So.
He has been a great mentor to me, and I can't wait to come back to my first year of college and be like, guess what I did?
Exactly.
I
You
got
got to
it
share.
through.
Give us an update.
Yes,
Give us an
I will.
update. We'd like to hear that.
So I want to also add, thank you, Katie. This is great. Hopefully you've identified apprentice to carry on your work. I'm hoping that that you're getting positive feedback from the teams.
Yes,
This
I am.
is a valuable service, especially coming from a student. The peers, they're more likely to listen to their own, and you're out there doing it. So what you say really does matter because you're experiencing it firsthand. So thank you for that. And thank you for your mom also coming and
Yes,
helping
I know.
tonight. I know she's been with you in all these presentations.
I know.
The majority of them, if not all. And so I thank you for that. You mentioned caffeine, and the other thing I wanted to say about that is caffeine is so dangerous. The half-life, when you're young, it takes you know, it takes a long time for it to pass through your system. And the older you get, the longer it takes. But caffeine also deprives you of sleep, and sleep is also absolutely critical, and it's the most important thing for body recovery. And so hopefully that message is getting out there as well. But this is just about how you bet.
This is tea,
Yeah, no.
tea, for the record.
He just gives my eye signals across the table to him. I'm like,
Fine, I drink water.
You wonder why he sleeps only 3 hours a
I
night.
drink water.
Why he drinks 3 hours, or sleeps 3 hours a night.
Great job, Lauren.
Yeah, Lauren, thank you again. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Katie. So feel free to go home and make sure more of these.
Yes, please.
You can drop them by the DO. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. So just to continue on, this is the time of the year where we start talking about budgets and things of that nature. And we're in a process now. I'm sure the board is familiar with our road show. It is just an example of our road show schedule. We're in the process of trying to solidify all the PTA meetings, all the faculty meetings, the town meetings, Clifton Park and Half Moon town meetings. So hopefully in short order we have the schedule finalized, but we'll send it out to you as a board anyway, so you can start looking at and trying to get some of these things on your calendar, and knowing that it might be updated as we get some additional meetings on this agenda. But just want to give you the flavor of this, that starting in end of March, we'll be pretty much jumping on the process of trying to promote the vote, so to speak.
So you have multiple options for the Half Moon and Clifton Park.
Actually, we have changed that now.
So
That's
there's
been
only one
updated.
option now.
Yes,
the only
that's correct.
option.
That's been updated.
So it's been,
Yes.
Since the other day.
It's been updated. See, it's changed all the time.
It wasn't up
So the
to
half
time.
moon one, we always go with this. We always go in the daytime.
Okay, so
That aligns with the Senior Citizen Center. We always go to the Half Moon. At Clifton Park, we try to go closer to the vote than not. So this, just to give the board a heads up that we're in the process of going through that piece of it. Don't have a presentation on the governor's aid run. However, this last week, the governor came out with his proposal. A lot of great rhetoric, if you will, about the need, and I agree with the rhetoric, that education, and public education in particular, is a civil right that every child should have access and opportunity to a great education. Absolutely agree with that piece of it. The difficulty always becomes how to fund it and the distribution of funds. And so a lot of focus over the last several months, not only from the governor, but also from the Senate, to try to figure out the foundation aid formula, which is the formula that, as the word implies, that creates a foundation that varies from district to district based upon their wealth. So poorer districts get more foundation aid, richer districts get less foundation aid. And the challenge right now we have with the governor's proposal is that he's proposing the consolidation of 10 different aid categories into one and calling it foundation aid, which is kind of like, so we just had Mrs. Lauren's mother just made a great thing here for us, and if she didn't tell us what the specific ingredients were, we really wouldn't know what we're eating, right? And so I use that for a great analogy in the sense that now we put 10 into one, we have no idea what adjustments actually taking place, and so subsequently impacts our ability to plan forward. It impacts, are we really getting the right reimbursement for things like BOCES aid and things of that nature? So there's some speculation that people think that it's a distractor, that people will spend more time lobbying to get it unpacked and less time lobbying to get more funds. And so smarter people than I are looking at that to say, how do we do both? And so as we advocate, that's going to be a new dimension to our advocacy, because we didn't see this coming, this consolidation piece of it. However, we can't stop at, okay, just unpack them. We also want to unpack them, but we all want to see some adjustment, particularly the portion of state aid that comes from the formula that the state hasn't allowed to run for a number of years now. So and last year we got very minimal foundation aid. It's not like we're expecting a huge amount, but at least we want to be able to know what that amount is, if any, so we can plan forward, because we know going into 2021 is going to be a tighter budget year for us, more so than not, and that's the reason, for those reasons, we really need to have a better sense of where our aid categories are falling out, so we can see where that trend is going as we plan for a number of years, because at the next board meeting, I think it is, we'll be talking about mid-year finances in our 3-year forecast. On the expenditure side, we also want to be able to see what does that look like on the revenue side if all things remain equal. So that's a big piece of the governor's proposal. That's a lot of lobbying is going to be. There are a lot of hidden things within that proposal that are being unpacked on a daily basis. For instance, some things related to special education, funding for special education programs, and some cost shifting related to that. Yeah, if you recall, a couple years ago, we were fighting about what's the county share versus the district share versus the state share. And, so all of a sudden, what we call those fine details that you don't pay attention to but have pretty significant impacts once they go into place. So we're watching that piece very closely as well, because for us, Shen as a district specifically, as I said, we get about 20% of our state aid, our revenue from state aid, which is a significant amount, but we never anticipate huge increases. So we always kind of look at this kind of flatline approach to things. However, so therefore, when you start tweaking anything that causes reduction, that becomes tremendously problematic for us. And so we're watching some of those things as we look through the next couple of weeks here to see where the legislature is going to come from, both the Assembly and the Senate, on this piece of it. Again, another distractor that we're fearful of is the both houses are now focused on trying to change the law that allows the governor, any governor of New York, to write into the budget bill laws that are not necessarily budget-related laws, but laws that impact everything else. And the most popular one, or should I say probably the most controversial one right now, is the bail reform law that just went into place. That was written into the budget bill last year, and to be effective January of this year. And so now they're all lobbying to say, can we change the law so the governor doesn't have that ability? Again, the fear I have is that people use all their political capital on changing things like that, and not political capital on trying to see if we get additional funding, recognizing that the state of New York has a huge issue with Medicaid funding and federal flow into Medicaid. The two largest portion of the state budget goes towards health care and education, which rightfully so. You want to educate people and keep them healthy, right? That's what we do in society. And so with the Medicaid issue looming, people are less hesitant to get into the financial discussion, and my fear is that some of these things were put out there as kind of distractors to make the policy process seem successful, but at the end of the day, we have nothing to show for it other than what we had before. So it's kind of, in a nutshell, that's kind of where we are right now in the process. I know Mr. DeLallo follows some of the stuff pretty closely, so if you want to contribute, Gary.
Just a couple things relative to the distractor, the combination of the expense-based aid. That's not new. That came out last year. It didn't prevail, and I have no reason to believe that it should prevail this year. I mean, the arguments are very strong against doing that. It isn't devastating when you first do it, because the funds that you would receive would basically be based on what you had just expended. But because the inflation rates change at different rates for each of those components that would then be combined, and you apply cost of living, you fall behind very rapidly. And so there's the issue with that. As far as this combining various kinds of non-budgetary legislation in with a budget, a man named Frank Monroe initially, an state employee, wrote an opinion on this a number of years ago. There was a lot of case law that enhanced the state constitutional provisions that give the governor significantly more power over the budget than the legislature has. Using Morrow's language in his study, and in fact, actually working with him, I put together a proposal, a resolution at New York State School Boards Association calling for an amendment to the Constitution. Didn't go very far. Ironically, the problem is that the state legislature, you would think, oh yeah, right? No, they can't blame the governor anymore if they actually have equal input into the budgetary process. So they're happy having less voice and being able to blame the governor as opposed to having a more equal voice and not being able to blame the governor.
Yep.
Dysfunctional government.
You think?
So that's kind of where we are. We'll continue to do our process. As I said, in a few weeks, we'll be coming back to the board to provide a mid-year status and also a 3-year forecast. And we anticipate that it's going to be tight and probably a little bit tighter because we have some cost shifting that took place this year. However, we'll still be in a good place moving forward. So recognizing I haven't seen we haven't seen Glenn here in a long time, and just because he's back from vacation, we don't want him to write anything inaccurate about Shen in the newspaper. So we want to make sure that he got the facts clear, that Shen will continue to be strong and provide programs for kids moving forward, regardless of what the state of New York does. So if there are any questions, I just want to transition for one thing. So we've been talking about also for the past several months and spoke with the facilities committee, and we're looking to reconvene the facilities committee in the coming weeks here, or a month or so here, about the potential of what I'm calling Project 2020. And the document that the board has in the link, so when we do capital project to the state education department, we have to come up with essentially an executive summary that puts the project into context. So the state education department, basically we justify and validate why we're doing the capital project. So the document that you have in front of you, that's why it's designed that way. So when we get to that point, so you see in the beginning, just stuff about Shen, it's about our vision, about our goals, so kind of put things in context, so to speak. So I won't necessarily go through all those kind of things. And also, we have, by law, in fact, our next one will be 2022, where we have to do a 5-year conditioning survey of the district. So every aspect of the district, we have architects, engineers come through, look at everything, and create this big report and kind of cost out some things that we have to do to maintain the facilities at a high level. So a lot of the stuff that we're proposing, or some of the stuff we're proposing on this potential project 2020, some of it comes from the last time we did the 5-year building condition survey, as well as some things that we see as program enhancements. So again, I'm just going to highlight some of these things. For example, in terms of some educational upgrade, as the board knows, we have spent a significant amount of time, attention, and resources, particularly at the high school, over the past couple of years with the upgraded library, with the impending start of construction in the science room and tech rooms this summer that will go into next fall. So there's been a lot of focus on that. So now we want to shift some of the focus to here in middle school complex and elementary schools. Undefined scope yet, so we'll be spending a lot of time talking to a lot of people to define that scope, the details of the scope. So far, Dr. Wood, Mrs. Chase, our facilities people, a lot of people just been doing what we call walking tour, visual tours, seeing some things like, yeah, we need to try to do something about that. So we're not talking about the technical things that we would ask our engineers to do, such as HVAC and those kind of things, but the things that enhance the environment for our students and our staff. And so we're looking to do some of those kind of things. Believe it or not, the turf field is now going on 13, almost 14 years, and we anticipate. So just give you some perspective. If we were to pass a referendum some point in 2020, we probably realistically wouldn't start construction until about 2022. So think about that now. So if we have something that's going on 14 years, there'll be 16, maybe 17 years old by the time we get to do construction on it. So sometimes people lose sight of that piece of it, but we always have to have foresight in our planning process. So the place in the turf and the track is right at the useful life point right now. Kudos to our folks. They've taken good care of it, and we got a lot of use out of it. But we don't want to the point where it's so deteriorated before we start fixing it, because when we get to that point, we have to wait 2 more years before we get to it. So we certainly don't want to be to that point as well. Here at High School West is being used more and more, and the sound system in High School West is not the greatest. In fact, we often have to bring outside piece equipment to come in. It's a venue that was designed 60 years ago, and it's still very much the design, regardless of some tweaking we have done around the edges. So we're going to spend some funds doing some things in that. Gym floors are always a big issue for us. Our gymnasiums are used all the time in every building. I mean, you drive to the campus on any weekend, you see people at every building, and a lot of it is gymnasium use space. And we have been a good resource to the community, and the community has been very supportive of the school. So to not to be a good resource of community is being hypocritical. So people invest in the organization, and the organization in turn be a good resource to the community.
Just
So-
a quick question, is that
sure.
for all schools? Or
We're
just
going to
the
look
high
at,
school?
we assess
Or
the
just
needs. We're going to assess
The
needs.
gym floors?
Yeah, we assess needs. So we haven't identified which one yet because some are in better shape than others. So energy efficiency is going to be a big piece of this project as well. And a big part of that is energy capacity as well. So the beauty of technology is that it's rampant. The beauty of the downfall of technology, it requires plugging in something someplace else that we didn't have outlets capacity. So energy capacity is always a big piece for us. But on the same note, we've been doing a lot of stuff to counter that by being much more energy efficient, from lighting to different mechanisms to control temperature and all those kind of things. So it's a counterbalance that we're trying to deal with. As we need more capacity, how do we then have energy become smarter in terms of our utilization of energy? So things like LED bulbs that we've been replacing and those kind of things. Things like windows, which I should pull the blinds down behind Mrs. Stevenson. So even like windows, we have windows that are 40, 50 years old that were, the windows at that time were designed certain, so loss of heat and all those kind of things, huge issues all the time. So things that people don't think about because the glass isn't broken. But when you put your hand there, you light a lighter and then you see the flame blowing, and you realize, okay, there's a lot of air blowing in and out of those. So energy efficiency is a big piece. Just to give you some examples. So we're going to look at a lot of those kind of things. Building infrastructure, boilers, chillers, water heaters, the things that people don't think about until they're not working. And so just think about, I tell people all the time, think about your house in the same way you have to make sure your hot water heater work, your furnace work. We have those 1,000 folds. That in terms of the capacity that we need for the district. And so we have to look at those kind of things. And we have been over the years taking out original boilers and heaters and things like that and replace them, but we still have some within the district still that we need to look and address. Code compliance is always an issue. Anytime we have a project, there's a slew of things that we have to bring up to the code because the codes have changed over the years. And so anytime we do something, SCD is going to require us to do something else to bring things up to code. So we anticipate there'll be a lot of code type issues. For instance, in the transportation department, we have to do some upgrades to our paint booth because we do our own internal painting and things of that nature. This past several project was the bays, the mechanic bays, and those have been upgraded. So now the next phase is the paint booth area and those kind of things. Asbestos is always a big issue because materials that were used to construct things 25, 30 years ago all contain asbestos, and so anytime we do any little project, it becomes an asbestos containment issue. So again, it's one of those kind of things that, again, most people don't think about, but all those things have a cost implication right away that we could change something. Somebody say, why do you spend so much money on this space? Because I don't see a significant difference. It's all the stuff that you don't see oftentimes. That's the thing that we spend resources on. ADA compliance of doors, classroom doors, that have turn knobs that are not ADA compliant anymore. So things that, again, you and I don't even think about because you can open the door, but someone who can't is out of compliance. Or so those kind of things that, again, the everyday stuff that we see all the time, that as an institution we have to bring up to snuff all the time. Safety and security is going to be an ongoing piece. At the time we have a project, we always try to do some continuous. So we've been doing a lot of stuff with safety and security, from everything from the films on glass, different areas, vestibule shifts. In fact, we're doing some work at the high school. We're going to do some changing in the front of the high school vestibule. We're going to do some changes here in the Acadia vestibule in terms of access points and how we get into those areas. Internal building signage is going to be a huge one, starting first at high school. This spring, we're going to be doing all the external signage. So we're then going to start doing some internal signage, again, starting high school. High school is always, once we master the high school, everything else becomes easier so to speak. And paving is always a big piece for us. We have miles and miles and miles and miles of blacktop, and so we always have paving on a project. So this is one of those projects that we can say, oh, wow, this is one of those, like, super sensational project. This is one of those projects that we're really trying to address a lot of needs. And the price point, we're roughly thinking about, if I'm not mistaken, the price point we're thinking about is roughly about, I want to make sure I say that right, I have it on here. I don't have it on this one. Think about $20 million is the price point that we're looking at in this project as we move forward. And if the board recall, we have that whole spreadsheet that has the projects when projects go off, so therefore we add a project on. So this part is a part that a lot of details. This is the if you want to think like this is a table of contents. Now we're going to have to go and write the actual content of the book. So a lot of details has to occur in terms of what are those things and the details behind those things. And that's where, again, reconvening the facilities committee and getting some committees together to start looking at those things pretty significantly. We're pretty fast. So related to that then is the next piece, and I won't go through all the details of it you have in front of you. But just to give you some sense of, when we think about capital project, again, people think it's a simple thing. There are many, 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 many steps that we have to take to make sure that everything happens seamlessly. And so right now is kind of like what we're talking about, the board discussion around referendum. Is this something that we want to do? So I'm not going to say to the board, yeah, we want to do these specific things. I'm going to say generally, is this something that's a board consensus, which last time we did, that was a general consensus of the board, that this is something that we want to do. So just kind of give you some time frame is that tonight we're having that discussion. By February, we need to have that final discussion about those kind of things. So by February, we'll come back with more details. So you can say, this is what it's actually going to look like. Here's which gyms, those kind of things. Some of those questions, hopefully, we have answers to as we move forward. Then we start doing a lot of assessments, meeting with a lot of folks. Again, I'm not going to go through the whole timeline, but there are several pieces here for the board. The board has to do the SEQA requirements and approval of those kind of things, and more information will come on those things as we move forward. But the piece that we kind of go backwards, and I'm going to go right here. Right now we have a September date, and Glenn, you can't publish this date yet, but you can since it's public information anyway. So the challenge that we have, this will not be a May referendum. The timeline doesn't work for a May referendum because of all the things that you have to do prior to that piece of it. And so we're looking at what we call off schedule referendum, so to speak. And typically, when we do those, they typically have been in October, November timeframe. The challenge that you have with October, November, December of this coming year is the national elections. So voting machines will not be available for us in October, November, nor December, because in October they're preparing for the national election in November, and all those machines are likely going to be sequestered for December until all the final tallies are done and things of that nature, which then puts us in a dilemma of, do we do something in September? And we don't do anything in February and March because weather factor is always an issue, and also we always have a significant portion of our population that travel out of state to get out of the weather. We don't call them snowbirds, but that's the typical term that people use. So we try not to do anything in February or March, and quite frankly, if we're going to wait for April, we might as well just wait for May. So that's kind of I share that's the logic behind proposing to do something in September, maybe a couple weeks after school start, and the timing of this is really going to be based upon truly when we can get the voting machines from the Board of Elections for that piece of it. And so right now that 15th date is the date we're going to put around it, saying something potentially mid-September for a referendum vote on this initiative. But as you see on the timeline, there's a lot of things to do before the vote, and even after the vote, there's a ton of things that we need to do before we even start the submission to State Education Department. So I'll stop right there for now.
So looking at your color chart, this is the 23.5 million project that you're proposing for this timeline, right here, correct?
Correct.
So another question I have is,
This one right here.
So there are other projects that would go into this, or are we going to have a capital vote like for the buses? That's still going to happen.
The vote for the buses always go with the budget vote.
Okay.
It's just another proposition on our annual election.
Okay.
That's correct.
Okay.
So that's, so that we always do the buses with the budget. Every year, we always have 3 referendum board members, bus, budget. Always the 3 referendum for the annual vote.
I just want to make some comments relative to the 5-year plan. Decisions are made based on, obviously, conditions that exist and things that surround it. For instance, when these buildings were built 50 years ago or thereabouts, single glazed windows made sense. Energy was cheap. We hadn't gone through the energy crisis of the 70s at that point in time. The technology for double glazed windows wasn't in place. Perhaps, and we look at this, perhaps double glazed windows for the purpose of saving money made sense sooner than this. However, the payback period for it, based on the cost of energy and savings, was such that it stretched out too long, maybe perhaps even beyond the life of the windows themselves. So there was no decision to do that at the time. Now, on the other hand, the windows are no longer in the kind of shape that are justified keeping them in place. Now it makes sense. We don't have really a lot of choice here. We need to replace the windows. Okay, so the decision may change as a consequence of the circumstances that surround it. These lights are not 50 years old. They've been replaced in the past with electronic starters and different kinds of tubes. They're much more energy efficient than the old style original tubes. However, LED lighting still represents a gain in energy efficiency that justifies making the switch, because on down the road the payback period is relatively short, and so it's a good investment to take to do the switch. So those are the kind of things that the committee primarily, however, the administration has to take into account with the architects when making decisions about what goes forward and what can wait. I want to make one other comment. It was relative to the Futures Committee. I'm glad that you picked up on this. You said the findings and recommendations to inform future planning and decision making, particularly for building decision, new building. But that first part, before the new buildings, is very important. When that committee was first formed, and Bob McClure, I believe, was superintendent of schools, the whole idea was that we would have the information needed to know when it really, really was right for redoing attendance areas, for instance. Certainly it's monitored all the time. They have much better information than we can keep track of. But it's still something that committee could think, whoa, we better be looking at that. And of course, whenever you have a major construction project, you have to look at alternatives. Do you build it to house the current configuration of grades, or do you look at alternative configurations? Quite frankly, I can't see any justification wherein we would do that, but you have to throw that consideration into the mix when you're looking at larger projects. Does what we're doing make sense going forward, or should we be looking at something else?
Any other thoughts, questions?
Do we look at other energy sources, like solar or anything like that, as part of this?
So the answer is yes, we have, and we will continue. Solar is still kind of tricky in terms of truly for instance, we got a nice solar grant some years back and kind of did a pilot on high school. We have solar panels on the portion of high school right now. Just kind of see what's the potential payback utilization. So that's kind of tricky still in the sense of so the answer is yes. And so when we go through these processes, back to Mr. DeLallo's point, it's not running after whatever the newest shiny penny is. It's running after what's going to be, when we think about the investment and the yield, right? Not only for a short period of time, but what's the longer term yield? Because we don't come back for another 10, 15 years to do some of these spaces. Some cases, I mean, quite frankly, the library, for example, last time the library in high school was done in 1972, and we just finished it in 2018. Or 2019. So I say that in the sense that when we look at some of these kind of things, we have to also think about the long-term duration and durability of those kind of things. But alternative energy is one of those things. That's the reason why we're looking at the LED pieces and all those kind of things. And so as things evolve, we try to see how can we be equipped to take advantage of those utilizations as we move forward. So the solar piece has always been kind of thing that's cycling out there. I know that now, recently, if I'm not mistaken, the town of Clifton Park or somebody just invested
Right.
in a pretty
There's
significant
fields that are
solar
up,
farm.
yeah.
So if that becomes a viable source of energy that we could tap into as a system, that's something down the road that it would be a no-brainer for us not to do it if it's a viable source and a cheaper source of energy to do those kind of things. So we don't object to it, but we just want to make sure that what we're doing is sustainable.
Right.
Because we can't come back to the taxpayers and say, yeah, we tried it, but it didn't work, and so we got to take it all out, and it doesn't work that way. So more to come. So again, I want to give the board a heads up because, one, if there's a degree of comfort with the potential of an off-cycle referendum, because we have to plan, we got to start planning now. Two, in the coming months or so, we'll try to get more details, but probably won't be till spring till we really do a pretty comprehensive feasibility study of all the pieces that we need to do. But again, to keep you as a board informed, so in case you hear conversations happening, you won't think what's happening. You have the newest and the latest information right here, right now, at your disposal.
It'll be interesting having it in the second week of school, because that's when it would be, because we have a late start this year.
Yeah.
This coming year.
One comment I heard in some of the conversations about a year or two ago, we rolled out the new library, and everybody thought that was great for the high schoolers. And then the next question was, how are we preparing middle schoolers to fall in on that? If you roll down to that table, you'll see there's room to have those discussions. And that creates the opportunity to look at this room in particular. Are there things that, with the right type of planning, the right type of alignment of resources, you could get the students ready from the middle school to go to the high school new library. So I thought that was a nice setup in there. So thank you.
So a lot of work to come, but I appreciate the support in advance as we embark
Okay.
upon another exciting project.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? If not, let's go to action items. And Mrs. Bush.
So thank you for having staffing on the agenda this evening. We've had some mid-year recommendations for hires, 2 art teachers, in fact, Crystal Preston and McKenna Robinson, are both on the agenda tonight. I think one's here? No? Yes. Crystal, congratulations.
Okay.
And she was just in our office like yesterday, maybe, or a couple days ago. And they're going to both be starting the next couple of weeks. And we have a new cleaner starting as well, Michael DeSanto. And as always, I'd like to recognize a retirement. Elizabeth Ross has been with the district for 26 years as a cook manager and is retiring at the end of the day, April 28th. So.
I have one question. A number of years ago, they moved to a 4-year probationary period.
That's correct.
Is that still in effect? They haven't.
For teachers? For teachers? You talking about for teachers?
Yes.
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 So still
Yes.
4. One of the hires was going to get 3 years. Is that because they had
So
previous-
if they've had tenure in another New York State school district and had effective or highly effective APPR ratings, they are granted credit for a year. Okay.
No other questions? Can I have a motion on this one? Mrs. Hoffman, second. Mrs. Stevenson, any comments? If not, all in favor? Okay.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you, President.
And at this point, looks like the adjournment is next. So can I have a motion to adjourn? Mrs. Miller, Mrs. Rajat, all in favor? Okay, meeting adjourned. Thank you.
It's a new trend, our meetings.
Yeah, well.
I love it.
I can make that happen every week. Just run the agenda.